The planet Arendor glimmered in the distant corner of the galaxy, its skies painted in soft shades of lavender and gold. Towering forests stretched for hundreds of miles, and crystal-clear rivers weaved like silver threads across the landscape. The Veyari, a peaceful and intelligent alien species, had built their homes in harmony with nature, creating cities that seemed to float above the ground. Life on Arendor was quiet, almost idyllic. That was until the Krith arrived. No one on Arendor had ever seen such beings before. The Krith were a violent and ruthless race, spreading destruction wherever they went. Ships larger than the Veyari cities descended from the sky, unleashing beams of energy that reduced buildings to rubble. Panic spread quickly. The Veyari had technology far beyond what humans could imagine, but it was designed for research, communication, and daily life, not warfare. Families ran through the streets trying to escape, while their few defense units struggled to hold the Krith back. In the midst of chaos, the Veyari High Council activated their distress signal, a universal call for help, sent to any civilization in the galaxy capable of responding. For the first time in their history, the Veyari hoped for salvation from outsiders. The message traveled through light years of space, reaching places the Veyari had never known existed. On Earth, the transmission arrived at the command center of the Deathworlders. These humans were different from ordinary soldiers. They were trained to survive in the deadliest conditions: planets with crushing gravity, extreme temperatures, toxic atmospheres, and hostile wildlife. The Deathworlders were humanity's elite, their skills honed to perfection in places where most people would die within hours. Captain Marcus Kane leaned over the display console, studying the incoming signal. His eyes, sharp and calculating, scanned every detail. "This is no ordinary distress call," he said. "The Veyari are in serious trouble. Their attackers aren't just raiders, they're systematic and deadly. This is a mission only Deathworlders can handle." Lieutenant Aisha Rami, his second-in-command, nodded. "We've trained for hostile planets before, but it's on a different scale. We need to be prepared for anything." Marcus didn't hesitate. Humanity had faced impossible odds before, from nuclear wastelands to alien flora that could crush a human in seconds. Yet nothing had prepared them for this kind of interstellar battle. "Prepare the ships," Marcus ordered. "We leave in 6 hours. Arendor needs us." Meanwhile, the Veyari were struggling to maintain hope. In the capital city of Lorinth, High Counselor Valar stood on a broken balcony looking over the devastation. He could see the Krith moving systematically, searching for survivors. "We may not survive this," he murmured, his voice heavy with despair. "Our knowledge and technology cannot save us alone." A young Veyari named Salira, trained as a communicator, approached him. "Counselor, the signal has been sent. We can only hope that anyone answers." Valar sighed. "Hope is all we have left. If help comes, it must be extraordinary." Back on Earth, the Deathworlders prepared for departure. The ships they boarded were built to endure anything. Armor plating that could resist meteor strikes, shields capable of deflecting energy blasts, and advanced sensors to detect life forms in the most hostile conditions. Each Deathworlder carried weapons designed for survival and precision, not for mass destruction. Marcus and his team knew that brute force alone would not win this battle. Strategy and adaptability were their greatest assets. As the fleet launched, Marcus looked at the stars ahead. "Arendor will test us in ways we've never faced before," he said. "But we do what humans do best. We survive, and when survival isn't enough, we fight smarter than anyone else." The journey through hyperspace was silent except for the hum of the engines. The Deathworlders trained their minds as well as their bodies during the trip. They reviewed information about the Krith, studied Arendor's geography, and ran simulations of possible battle scenarios. Each one was focused, knowing that the lives of an entire alien civilization depended on their success. Finally, the fleet exited hyperspace. Arendor appeared below them, its beauty marred by smoke and fire. Cities that had once gleamed under the alien sun now lay in ruins. The rivers were choked with debris, and thick clouds of ash covered large portions of the land. Marcus activated the landing sequence. "Prepare for deployment. We enter at multiple points to avoid detection. The Krith believe the Veyari are alone. They don't know we're here." The Deathworlders descended in small stealth pods, landing silently near the edges of the besieged cities. Marcus led his team through the forests first, moving like shadows. The air was heavy with the smell of burning foliage, and the distant hum of Krith ships reminded them of the danger ahead. Their first encounter came sooner than expected. A Krith patrol was scanning the area for survivors. The Deathworlders observed quietly, analyzing the enemy's behavior. Then, with precise coordination, they struck. Aisha's team disabled the patrol using silent, non-lethal techniques, ensuring they could continue without alerting the main forces. "This is just the beginning," Marcus said, his voice calm but firm. "We adapt. We survive. We save them." The Deathworlders moved deeper into Lorinth, encountering pockets of Vayari who had survived the initial attacks. Many were frightened and skeptical of these strange humans. Marcus and his team demonstrated their capabilities by rescuing families trapped under collapsed buildings, neutralizing dangerous threats and quickly establishing defensive perimeters. Celira, the young communicator, watched with amazement. "These humans, they fight like no one I've ever seen. Not with anger, but with control. They survive situations we cannot imagine." Marcus spoke to the Vayari survivors. "We're here to protect you. Follow our instructions, stay calm, and trust in the plan. You may not understand all of it, but your lives depend on it." Slowly, the Vayari began to follow the humans' lead. The Deathworlders showed them how to use their environment to their advantage, hiding in the forests, using natural barriers and setting up warning systems to detect approaching Krith patrols. As night fell, the Vayari cities were quiet but not safe. The Krith were relentless, and Marcus knew that a full-scale battle was inevitable. In the darkness, he gathered his team. "Tomorrow we strike where they least expect it. This is not just about survival. It's about showing the Vayari that humans will not be defeated no matter the odds. We fight smart, we fight together, and we fight for those who cannot defend themselves." The team nodded, each one understanding the weight of the task. These were no ordinary humans. They were Deathworlders, the galaxy's most adaptable and relentless warriors. As the first stars of Arendor's night sky shone down, Marcus felt a rare moment of calm. He knew the coming days would test them all. But one thing was certain: humanity had arrived, and the Krith were about to learn that Deathworlders did not back down. And somewhere in the distance, the Vayari watched, hope flickering in their eyes for the first time in weeks. The night on Arendor was heavy, almost suffocating, as the Deathworlders moved quietly through the forest toward the heart of the capital city, Lorinth. The air was thick with smoke, and the faint glow of fires painted the trees in red and gold. Marcus Kane led the team, his eyes scanning for any sign of Krith patrols. Every sound could mean danger, every shadow a potential threat. "We need to set up observation points," Marcus said softly. "We cannot charge in blindly. The Krith are strong but predictable if we watch carefully." Lieutenant Aisha Rami nodded. "I've already marked 3 vantage points. From there, we can see their movements and plan the first strike." The Vayari, still nervous but eager to help, followed cautiously. Celira, the young communicator, moved alongside them, carrying a small device that could send signals back to any remaining Vayari units. "This way," she whispered, guiding the humans to a ridge overlooking the main Krith encampment. From their position, the Deathworlders observed the enemy. Hundreds of Krith soldiers patrolled the ruined streets. Their ships hovered above, scanning for any signs of life. The Krith were confident, almost arrogant, assuming the Vayari were too weak to resist. They had no idea that humans, Deathworlders trained in the deadliest conditions, had arrived to change the outcome. Marcus studied the enemy carefully. "We hit them here," he said, pointing to a supply depot near the city's center. "It's lightly guarded, and destroying it will slow their operations. Then we move to secure the residential sectors and rescue as many Vayari as we can." The team moved with precision. Using the forest for cover, they approached the depot under the veil of darkness. Marcus and Aisha led a small strike team, while others positioned themselves around the perimeter. Every movement was calculated, silent, and efficient. When they reached the depot, Aisha deployed a series of small, non-lethal disruption devices. Sparks flew, and energy fields around the depot flickered and died. Alarms blared across the Krith encampment. The enemy scrambled, but by the time they arrived, the Deathworlders were already in position. Using compact weapons and carefully aimed projectiles, they neutralized patrols without drawing attention to themselves. From the ridge, Celira watched in awe. These humans, they fight differently, not with chaos but with thought. Every action has purpose. Marcus crouched behind a fallen wall, signaling his team to advance. We move now. Focus on rescue, not destruction. The Veyari lives are our priority. The streets of Lorinth were dangerous. Rubble blocked pathways and fires burned unpredictably. The Veyari civilians, frightened and disoriented, hid wherever they could. Marcus's team moved through the city like shadows, guiding survivors toward safer zones. Their training on Earth's deadliest planets paid off. They knew how to navigate treacherous terrain, avoid enemy traps, and maintain silence under pressure. In one alley, they found a small group of Veyari children trapped under debris. Marcus lifted a heavy beam effortlessly, and Aisha coordinated the group's movement. "Stay close," she instructed. "Follow us quietly. Do not run." The children's eyes were wide with fear, but they obeyed. The humans' calm and controlled presence reassured them. Even in the midst of war, the Deathworlders exuded a confidence that inspired hope. As they moved deeper into the city, Krith reinforcements appeared. Larger than the initial patrols, these soldiers were heavily armored and carried advanced energy weapons. Marcus signaled his team to take defensive positions. Using Arendor's terrain to their advantage, they set up ambush points. The battle was swift and precise. Humans used short-range traps and calculated attacks to disable the Krith soldiers before they could organize a counterattack. Each strike was measured, minimizing unnecessary risk. The Veyari watched in astonishment. They had never seen such coordinated tactics in action. Hours passed, and the Deathworlders continued their rescue mission. They cleared neighborhoods, secured key areas, and helped the Veyari establish temporary shelters. The city, though still under threat, began to show signs of hope. In a ruined plaza, Marcus gathered the Veyari leaders. "We can hold these sectors for now," he explained. "But the Krith will come back with greater force. We need to prepare defenses and train as many of your people as possible in survival techniques." Vaedlar, the counselor, nodded. "We have never had warriors like you before. Your methods are unlike anything we've seen. Perhaps humanity is the strength we needed all along." Salira added quietly. "It is not just strength. It is wisdom and courage and the ability to act even when the situation seems hopeless." That night, as fires still burned in parts of the city, the Deathworlders set up defensive perimeters around key sectors. Marcus and Aisha conducted reconnaissance patrols, ensuring that no Krith forces were approaching unnoticed. Every sound, every shadow was scrutinized. "I've never seen humans move like this," Salira whispered to a small group of Veyari. "They survive everywhere, even in places that would kill our bravest soldiers in minutes." Marcus overheard her and nodded slightly. "Survival is a skill we've learned the hard way," he said. "We adapt, we endure, and when necessary, we fight." In the distance, the Krith gathered their forces. They did not expect the humans to be here. They had assumed the Veyari would fall easily. But now, with the Deathworlders intervening, the balance had shifted. The Krith commander, observing the battlefield from his hovering ship, frowned. "These humans, they are not like the others. We underestimated them." Marcus returned to the command point, reviewing the city map. He marked areas where Veyari civilians were still trapped and planned the next phase of operations. "We've slowed them down," he said. "But this is only the beginning. We need to keep them off balance and save as many as we can. Tomorrow we push further into the city. We strike before they expect it." Aisha checked her equipment. "They won't anticipate human adaptability. They fight with raw power, but we use intelligence and timing. That is our advantage." Marcus allowed himself a small smile. "Exactly. They think the Veyari are weak. They don't know we're here, and they don't know what humans can do when the odds are impossible." As dawn approached, the forest surrounding Lorinth began to glow with the first light of Arendor's sun. The smoke from fires painted the sky in muted shades of orange and gray. Marcus surveyed the city, noting both the destruction and the signs of recovery. The Deathworlders had made a difference, saving hundreds of lives and showing the Veyari that they were not helpless. Salira watched the humans silently, her respect growing. Perhaps humanity is different from any other race, she thought. They do not simply fight. They survive, they protect, and they adapt. They are extraordinary. Marcus turned to his team. "Rest if you can," he said. "Tomorrow we continue. We will show the Krith that humans do not flee, humans do not surrender, and humans always find a way to survive." The Veyari civilians began to emerge from hiding, cautiously approaching the human warriors. For the first time in weeks, there was hope in Lorinth. The Deathworlders had arrived, and with them came the possibility of survival, the chance to reclaim their city, and the realization that humans were a force the galaxy could not ignore. The Krith, watching from above, would soon learn that on Arendor, humans were more than just soldiers. They were survivors, strategists, and protectors. The first night had passed, but the war was far from over, and as the sun rose fully over Arendor, the Deathworlders prepared for the battles ahead, knowing that every life saved, every victory earned, and every moment of endurance would define humanity's place among the stars. The city of Lorinth was quiet for a brief moment, but Marcus Kane knew better than to trust silence. The Krith were intelligent and ruthless, and their next strike would not be small. Through intercepted transmissions and careful observation, the Deathworlders learned that the enemy was regrouping, gathering reinforcements from nearby sectors. Hundreds more Krith soldiers, supported by massive hovercraft and armored walkers, were heading for the city. "We've slowed them down," Marcus said, studying a holographic map of the city and surrounding forests. "But they're coming back stronger. We need a plan that uses the city itself to our advantage." Lieutenant Aisha Rami pointed to the narrow streets and broken buildings. "We can create choke points, force them into areas where their numbers won't help. And with the Veyari's help, we can set up traps they won't expect." The Veyari, though inexperienced in combat, were eager to learn. Celira and other volunteers helped the Deathworlders map the city, identifying buildings strong enough to serve as defensive positions and alleys, narrow enough to slow down the Krith's larger units. "We fight smarter, not just harder," Marcus reminded his team. "The Krith rely on brute strength. We rely on strategy, timing, and adaptability. That is what makes humans different." Before dawn, the Deathworlders positioned themselves strategically throughout the city. Some took rooftop positions to observe enemy movements, while others hid in alleys and ruins. Marcus and Aisha led small strike teams into areas where Veyari civilians were trapped, rescuing them quietly and guiding them to safer sectors. The first wave of Krith scouts arrived, just as the sun broke over Lorinth, casting long shadows across the rubble-strewn streets. They expected the city to be easy prey, assuming the Veyari were still defenseless. What they did not expect was the humans' calculated ambush. With precision, the Deathworlders struck from hidden positions. Compact, non-lethal devices disabled enemy shields temporarily, allowing teams to incapacitate soldiers quickly. Explosives were minimal, used only to create barriers or slow enemy advancement, while traps fashioned from debris and environment forced the Krith into confined spaces. Marcus moved like a shadow through the streets, leading his team from cover to cover. "Focus on their weaknesses," he instructed. "They are powerful individually but predictable as a group. Exploit their patterns and we win without unnecessary risk." Even the Veyari were impressed. They had always seen humans as strong and resilient, but here, Marcus and his team demonstrated something deeper, the ability to think, adapt, and overcome danger in ways no technology alone could achieve. Hours into the battle, the Krith unleashed larger forces. Hovercraft swooped in, scanning for movement, while armored walkers pushed through the ruined streets, flattening obstacles with brute force. The city shook under their weight and fires blazed in several districts. Marcus observed the enemy carefully. "We can't stop them head-on," he said. "We need to channel them into the eastern sector. Narrow streets, destroyed buildings, perfect for a controlled trap." Using signals and subtle movements, the Deathworlders guided the Krith through the city. At every turn, small squads harassed the enemy, slowing their advance and keeping them off balance. The Krith commander, high above in his command ship, was growing frustrated. "These humans, they fight like shadows. They adapt too quickly. I underestimated them." In the eastern sector, Marcus activated the trap. Explosives created temporary barriers, funneling Krith soldiers into narrow passages. From elevated positions, Aisha and her team struck with precision, using the terrain to multiply their impact. Krith soldiers fell back, unable to maneuver in the confined space. Even the Veyari, watching from nearby shelters, could not hide their astonishment. "We never imagined combat could be this intelligent," Celira whispered. "Humans do not just fight. They think, they plan, they survive." As the battle raged on, Marcus spotted a group of Krith targeting Veyari civilians attempting to flee. Without hesitation, he led a small strike team to intercept them. Using cover, misdirection, and rapid movements, The humans neutralized the threat before the Krith could reach the civilians. One Vayari family, trapped behind rubble and cornered by enemy soldiers, was saved by the intervention. The father, shaken but grateful, said to Marcus, "We thought we would die. Your people, your humans. You saved us," Marcus nodded. "We fight to protect. That is what humans do. You survive when you work together, and you protect when you can." The Krith forces, though formidable, were unprepared for this combination of strategy, endurance, and adaptability. They had relied on overwhelming numbers and raw power, but the Deathworlders had turned Arendor itself into a weapon. Narrow streets, forested edges, and crumbling buildings became tools in human hands, every obstacle used to advantage. By midday, the first major assault of the day ended. The Krith were forced to retreat temporarily, regrouping in the outskirts of the city. Fire still burned, but the Vayari civilians who survived were safe for now. Marcus and his team regrouped as well, tending to minor injuries and coordinating with the Vayari volunteers. High Counselor Vaylar approached Marcus cautiously. "You have done something remarkable," he said. "Our people have seen devastation like this, and yet you have brought hope. How can humans be so strong yet so controlled?" Marcus shook his head. "It is not just strength, Counselor. It is survival. Humans endure, we adapt, and we work together. Brute force is nothing without thought. That is why we are here, and why we survive where others fail." Salira added, "Your people are extraordinary. They do not fight for glory or power. They fight because they must. And in doing so, they teach us to survive, too." The Deathworlders spent the afternoon preparing for the next wave. They reinforced defensive positions, cleared escape routes for civilians, and trained Vayari volunteers in basic combat strategies. Even the young and inexperienced learned quickly under the humans' guidance, discovering the value of timing, patience, and observation. Marcus held a brief council with his team. "The Krith will return stronger. They are learning as well. Tomorrow we anticipate a full-scale assault. We must be ready not just to survive, but to control the battlefield. Use the environment, use the Vayari's knowledge of the city, and always stay adaptable." "That is our advantage," Aisha nodded. "They will not expect human patience. They expect chaos, but we bring precision." The night fell again, heavy and tense. Fires still burned in parts of the city, casting long shadows across the ruins. Yet the Vayari were no longer paralyzed by fear. With the Deathworlders guiding them, they began to take part in their own defense, establishing watch points and warning systems, learning how to use their environment to their advantage. Marcus looked over the city from a high vantage point. The first wave had been repelled, but he knew the war was far from over. The Krith were intelligent, persistent, and ruthless. Humanity's task was not simply to fight. They had to teach survival, inspire hope, and prepare for the battles that would determine the fate of an entire civilization. "Tomorrow will be harder," Marcus said quietly, speaking more to himself than anyone else. "But we fight not just for survival, but for hope. And that is something no enemy can destroy." In the distance, Krith forces began to regroup for their next strike, unaware that humans had already changed the rules of engagement. The Deathworlders, trained on the deadliest planets of Earth, had shown that adaptability, intelligence, and endurance were stronger than brute force. The Vayari, inspired by their new allies, began to believe in their own strength. And as the first stars of Arendor's night sky appeared, Marcus and his team prepared for the battles to come, knowing that humanity's presence on this distant world was only the beginning. The Krith would learn that when humans fight, they fight not just to survive, but to protect, to adapt, and to triumph against all odds. The city of Lorinth had survived the first major wave of Krith attacks, but Marcus Kane knew the danger was far from over. Intelligence gathered during the battle revealed the enemy was preparing a much larger assault, one that could destroy entire sectors of the city if left unchecked. The Deathworlders had slowed the Krith, but the real test was yet to come. Marcus gathered his team in a partially collapsed building that had been converted into a command center. Aisha Rami pointed to the holographic map of the city. "The Krith are concentrating forces in the northern districts," she said. "They're assembling hundreds of soldiers and several armored walkers. This will be their strongest push yet." Marcus nodded. "Good, that is exactly where we want them. The northern sector has narrow streets, ruined buildings, and abandoned factories, perfect for traps and ambushes. We use their strength against them. Celira, the young Vayari communicator, looked anxious. But the northern district is where most of our survivors are hiding.
Can we protect them?
We will, Marcus said firmly. We fight smart. Every step we take, every trap we set is to keep them safe. That is what humans do. We protect and adapt. Over the next several hours, the Deathworlders coordinated with Vayari volunteers to fortify the northern sector. Barricades were set up, improvised traps crafted from debris, and defensive positions carefully selected. Every rooftop, alleyway, and ruined building was turned into a potential advantage. Marcus walked through the sector, checking every position. The Krith rely on brute force, he explained to the Vayari. They assume numbers are everything. But we use our environment, our timing, and our teamwork. If we act together, we can control the battlefield. A group of young Vayari volunteers listened intently. They were learning quickly under the humans' guidance, practicing how to guide enemy forces into confined spaces, use natural barriers, and coordinate movements quietly. Even the smallest details mattered, and the Deathworlders emphasized that intelligence and observation could turn the tide of battle more than raw strength ever could. As night fell, the Krith launched their largest attack yet. Massive ships hovered over the city, casting shadows across the burning ruins while armored walkers stomped through streets, clearing anything in their path. The air was filled with the hum of energy weapons and the cries of distant alarms. Marcus signaled his team to their positions. Remember, he said, we are not just fighting. We are controlling the battlefield. Every movement, every action is planned. Stay calm, stay focused, and watch the Krith make mistakes. The Deathworlders split into squads, moving silently through the streets. Aisha and her team guided Vayari civilians into safe zones, using hidden paths and secret tunnels. The Krith were confident, assuming the humans and Vayari would be overwhelmed. They had underestimated the power of adaptability and strategy. The first clashes began in narrow alleys and ruined plazas. Krith soldiers moved in formation, expecting to sweep through easily. But the Deathworlders had prepared. Tripwires triggered small but effective obstacles, forcing the Krith into confined areas. From rooftops and hidden positions, Marcus's team struck precisely, incapacitating soldiers without causing unnecessary destruction. Even the Vayari volunteers participated, guiding fleeing civilians and reporting enemy movements. Their confidence grew with every successful maneuver. Celira marveled at the human precision. They do not fight recklessly, she whispered. Every strike has purpose. Every movement is calculated. This is not just combat, it is mastery of survival. The Krith commander, observing from his hovercraft, began to recognize the danger. These humans are not ordinary, he growled. They anticipate, adapt, and strike where we are weakest. We cannot rely on strength alone. Hours passed with intense combat. The Krith pushed hard, but every advance was anticipated and countered. Marcus's squads moved fluidly between positions, striking and withdrawing as needed. The Vayari, guided by humans, learned quickly how to exploit terrain and channel the enemy into traps. In one ruined plaza, a massive armored walker advanced toward a cluster of civilians. Marcus signaled a team of Vayari volunteers. Using ropes, debris, and small energy devices, they lured the walker into a narrow street. There, Marcus and his team disabled its support systems, forcing it to collapse without harming any civilians. A Vayari elder, witnessing the maneuver, exclaimed in amazement, I have never seen such skill. These humans, they do not simply fight. They think, they adapt, and they protect. Marcus nodded without pride. That is what humans do. We survive, we adapt, and we protect those who cannot defend themselves. Every challenge teaches us, every obstacle strengthens us. As the night wore on, the Krith intensified their assault, sending waves of soldiers in a coordinated effort to break the Deathworlders' defenses. But the humans were prepared. Using the city itself, they created layered defenses. Every retreat point was a trap. Every path a controlled danger for the enemy. Aisha coordinated with rooftop teams to drop barriers and guide the Krith into confined zones. Marcus moved from position to position, ensuring every squad acted in perfect synchronization. The humans and Vayari worked together seamlessly, the aliens learning quickly from their new allies. Celira, observing from a safe vantage point, began to feel a spark of hope. Perhaps we can survive this, she thought. If humanity is here with us, guiding us, nothing is impossible. By the early morning, the northern sector had held. The Krith, exhausted and frustrated, retreated temporarily, realizing that brute force alone could not win this battle. Fires still burned, but the Deathworlders and their Veyari allies had secured the area, saving hundreds of civilians. Marcus gathered his team to review the night's events. "We held them off, but the war is far from over," he said. "They will regroup, adapt, and attack again. But we have shown them one thing. They cannot predict humans, they cannot rely on raw power, and they cannot break our resolve." Aisha added, "We've also given the Veyari hope. That is as important as any victory in battle. Courage spreads quickly, and hope can turn the tide before the fight even begins." High Counselor Valar approached Marcus once more. "Your people, your humans, they have changed our understanding of strength. We now know that survival, intelligence, and unity can overcome even the strongest enemy. You have not only protected us, but taught us to defend ourselves." Marcus allowed himself a brief smile. "That is the lesson humanity brings. We endure, we adapt, and we fight, not for glory, but for survival, for hope, and for those who cannot fight for themselves." As the sun rose fully over Lorinth, the city appeared calmer, but Marcus knew the peace was temporary. The Krith would return, and their next assault would likely be their most destructive yet. But with the Deathworlders guiding the Veyari, every sector of the city was prepared. Civilians were safe, defensive positions strengthened, and the alien population had learned to survive in ways they never thought possible. Celira looked around at the city and whispered to herself, "Humans are different. Extraordinary. They do not just survive, they inspire. With them, we can face anything." Marcus watched from the command point as Veyari volunteers patrolled their sectors alongside the humans. The bond between the species was growing stronger with each passing moment, built on respect, trust, and shared struggle. He turned to Aisha. "Tomorrow the Krith will test us again, but we are ready. Our advantage is not in weapons, not in numbers, but in strategy, adaptability, and teamwork. They cannot match that, and they will learn it the hard way." And somewhere beyond the city, the Krith commander prepared for their next strike, unaware that the humans had already rewritten the rules of engagement. The Deathworlders, trained on Earth's most deadly planets, had shown that intelligence, coordination, and endurance were more powerful than any weapon or army. On Arendor, hope had returned. The Veyari, once helpless, were now learning to fight and survive under the guidance of humanity's finest warriors. The city had survived the night, and the humans had proven that no matter the odds, survival, strategy, and courage could overcome even the most powerful enemies. The war was far from over, but one thing was certain: humanity had arrived, and the galaxy would never underestimate the Deathworlders again. The dawn of the 5th day brought an eerie silence over Lorinth. Fires from the previous battle still smoldered, casting smoke into the violet-colored sky of Arendor. Marcus Kane stood on a high vantage point scanning the city below. The Krith had not yet arrived, but the Deathworlders knew this calm was temporary. Today would decide the fate of the city, and perhaps the entire planet. "Reports indicate their main fleet is approaching," Aisha Rami said, pointing to the holographic display. "Hundreds of soldiers, multiple armored walkers, and several heavy hovercraft. This is their final push," Marcus nodded. "Then we give them a welcome they won't forget. Today, humans and Veyari fight as one. We protect every civilian, hold every street, and show the Krith the cost of underestimating us." Celira and a group of Veyari volunteers gathered nearby. Their eyes were filled with a mixture of fear and determination. They had learned from the humans, and under their guidance they had begun to understand the art of survival in ways they never imagined. "We are ready," Celira said softly. "We will fight with you." Marcus smiled faintly. "Then let's make history." The Deathworlders deployed their forces strategically throughout the city. The northern and central sectors, previously fortified, were now connected with signal lines, hidden paths, and observation points. Every street and alley had been mapped, and traps set to channel the enemy into zones where their numbers were less effective. The humans and Veyari volunteers coordinated quietly, moving silently through shadows as the first Krith scouts appeared on the horizon. From the city's ruined rooftops, Marcus and Aisha signaled teams into position. "Remember," Marcus whispered, "this is not a battle of brute force. It is a battle of intelligence, patience, and precision. We do not fight every enemy at once. We choose the moments that matter." The first wave of Kreth soldiers entered the city. They were confident, expecting to overwhelm the defenders as they had done in previous attacks. But the streets were silent and every alley seemed empty. The Deathworlders allowed the enemy to advance, guiding them toward traps and choke points. As the Krith entered the northern sector, they triggered hidden barriers and collapsed walkways. Armored walkers became trapped in narrow streets, unable to maneuver effectively. From above, human squads struck with precise energy weapons, disabling enemy systems and creating confusion. The Vayari volunteers directed civilians safely through hidden tunnels, ensuring no lives were lost. Salira watched in awe. "They do not just fight," she whispered. "They control everything around them. Even the city itself is a weapon in their hands." Marcus moved through the chaos like a shadow, guiding his teams, checking traps, and communicating with squads in every sector. Every action was calculated. Every movement had a purpose. The Krith, though powerful, struggled against the humans' combination of strategy, adaptability, and precision. Hours passed with intense clashes. The Krith tried to regroup, but each attempt led them deeper into the Deathworlders' carefully laid traps. Narrow streets funneled their forces into confined zones, while improvised obstacles slowed their advance. From rooftops and ruins, human squads struck with unerring accuracy, disabling enemy weapons and creating openings for Vayari volunteers to rescue trapped civilians. A massive armored walker advanced toward the central plaza, intending to destroy one of the main shelters. Marcus led a squad to intercept it. Using ropes, debris, and non-lethal disruption devices, they disabled the walker's mobility, forcing it to collapse without harming any civilians. The Vayari volunteers watched, inspired and amazed, as humans once again turned the enemy's power against itself. By midday, the Krith commander realized the humans were unlike any opponent he had faced. "They anticipate everything," he growled, observing from his command ship. "Every trap, every strike. They are not ordinary. These humans are extraordinary." Marcus, overhearing intercepted communications, allowed himself a brief smile. "They are learning," he said quietly. "But it's too late. The city is prepared, the people are protected, and we control the battlefield." The Krith launched their heaviest units into the southern sector, hoping to break through by force. Marcus quickly adjusted his squads, coordinating with Vayari volunteers to reinforce choke points and trap corridors. Every street was a calculated battlefield, and the Krith found themselves outmaneuvered at every turn. Even the Vayari, once terrified and helpless, had learned to fight alongside the humans. They used barricades, improvised weapons, and their own knowledge of the city to assist in guiding the enemy into areas where their strength was neutralized. Salira led a small group of volunteers, directing them to protect civilians and monitor enemy movements. "We can do this," she said to herself, courage building in her heart. "Humans show us the way, and together we will survive." As evening approached, the final confrontation began. The Krith, frustrated by repeated failures, concentrated all remaining forces in the central district. Armored walkers, hovercraft, and elite soldiers advanced, hoping sheer force would overwhelm the defenders. Marcus signaled every team into their final positions. "Now," he whispered, "we strike together. Timing, precision, coordination. This is our advantage. Remember, we fight not just to survive, but to protect and inspire hope. That is what humans do." From rooftops, hidden positions, and fortified buildings, human squads unleashed a calculated assault. Energy disruptors disabled enemy shields, traps funneled soldiers into narrow alleys, and precise strikes dismantled armored units. The Krith commander's forces began to crumble, unable to respond effectively to the humans' strategic mastery. Even as the Krith attempted to regroup, the Vayari volunteers took command of remaining civilians, guiding them safely away from the danger zones. The bond between humans and aliens had grown strong in just a few days of battle, and it was now evident in every action taken during the fight. By nightfall, the battle was over. The Krith, defeated and demoralized, retreated from Lorinth, leaving the city in the hands of the humans and their Vayari allies. Fires still burned in some districts, but the majority of civilians were safe, and the city had survived. Marcus stood on a high vantage point, looking over the ruins with quiet satisfaction. Aisha joined him. "They will not return," she said. "Not after seeing what we can do." Marcus nodded. "Perhaps not. But even if they do, we have shown the Vayari and ourselves that humanity is more than brute force. Intelligence, adaptability, endurance, and courage can overcome any enemy. Celera approached, her eyes bright with admiration. Your people, you're humans. You saved us when we thought all hope was lost. You taught us to fight, to survive, and to protect. We will never forget this. Marcus smiled faintly. It is what humans do. We survive. We adapt and we protect those who cannot defend themselves. Today you fought with us and together we changed the outcome. That is the power of humans, and the power of unity. The Vayari began clearing debris, rescuing those still trapped, and rebuilding sections of their city. The bond between humans and aliens had grown stronger than ever, forged in fire and tested in battle. The Deathworlders, despite exhaustion, helped wherever they could, guiding reconstruction efforts and ensuring the safety of every citizen. High Counselor Valar approached Marcus and Aisha. Your people, humanity, you have given us a gift beyond words. You did not just fight for us, you taught us hope, courage, and the strength to survive. You are heroes of our world. Marcus shook his head. We did what anyone would do. Survival and protection are what humans are trained for. But it is the Vayari people who will carry this forward. You have learned how to survive, how to adapt, and how to protect one another. That is your true victory. Celera, standing nearby, looked at the city and whispered to herself, humans are different, extraordinary. They do not just survive, they inspire, and through them, we have learned to survive as well. As the stars of Arendor appeared in the night sky, the city of Lorinth stood resilient. The Krith had been defeated, the Vayari had survived, and humanity had proven once again why the Deathworlders were legends among the stars. Marcus and his team prepared to leave, their mission complete but their impact lasting forever. Before boarding their ships, Marcus looked over the city one last time. Remember, he said to the Vayari gathered below, you have survived because of your courage, your will, and your adaptability. Humans were here to guide, but you are the ones who will carry that strength forward. Protect each other, adapt, and survive. That is the true lesson. Celera nodded, her eyes shining. We will never forget. Humanity has shown us what it means to fight with intelligence, courage, and heart. As the Deathworlder fleet ascended into the skies, leaving Arendor behind, the Vayari watched in gratitude and awe. For the first time in generations, hope had returned, and somewhere in the galaxy, the legend of humanity, the Deathworlders, grew stronger, inspiring not just the Vayari, but countless other civilizations who would hear of their courage, intelligence, and unbreakable will. The battle was over, but the story of human resilience, adaptability, and heroism would live on across the stars.